planet, third planet from the sun, and we have September 25th. I do a short summary webinar on DNA, and I have Ben with me. Hey Ben, thank you for joining. So Tucker asked me to explain a little more about DNA, this human science more or less, so people can understand the hybridization a little better. And I will try that. And Ben, thank you for joining me, and please develop the dialogue so I don't do monologue, let's do a dialogue. And I will, yes, thank you. And now I will do my drawing board, so we can do like some sort of a picture here. Okay, almost ready, almost good. And welcome. So we're, it doesn't draw well. Let me try another one. We're human colony.org. Can you see it all right?
Perfect.
Is it properly spelled on your screen?
Absolutely.
On my screen, it's actually a mirror, but I think that's convenient. That's okay.
You're good.
All right, and you can find us on YouTube by searching. You abbreviate Human Colony to Hucolo, Hucolo. And on YouTube, if you search Hucolo or just search Hucolo on Google, you will find us. Nice. So what are the questions I want to cover today? I started with the bigger question, healing and ascension, but really to be brief, let's do only the very simple thing. Let's do hybridization and DNA. And let's start with something sophisticated. The main question would be, something advanced, or not sophisticated, advanced. Nice that you turn on your camera, thank you.
Yeah.
The question is, how does alien DNA get into us? That is a big one. And why do they do that? I guess it's beyond that. And what other questions? You asked about animals, right? So how animals came about, yes.
Yeah. Because essentially, what I'm to understand, what I'm really intrigued by are the Anubians, which is the dog, if I'm not mistaken.
Dog humans, yeah, humanoid dogs.
Anubis, right, was the Egyptian.
Yes, yes.
So the Anubians are the dogs, and I've just had a fascination with, okay, does that mean that's where dogs come from? And Lyra, is that where we get all of our cats? It'd be interesting to figure that concept out, because in that concept as well, that's really what we're hybridizing with, is alien concepts of these base structures.
Yes, and these are tough questions, right?
Yeah.
Because we know we are very similar to other animals on Earth, and we know that evolution. I'm pretty sure Darwin theory of evolution is largely correct. There was a timeline of evolution on Earth. So how did we come about? Right. So we have that classical thing from bacteria into, I guess, multicellular organisms.
Yep, multicellular.
And then to some sort of simplistic structures like tubes. I don't remember even that. And then you get into more sophisticated structures, multicells, and there is a head, and then it goes into some sort of fish, right? I will draw a fish. And then it goes into frogs. I don't know how to draw a frog. Something like jumping. Something jumping. And then you get lizards, right? And then you get mammals. And what's good about mammals is they have live birth, and they have, I will draw a live birth, and they have mammal glands, and they have a belly where they carry the baby. So it's live birth, and I get smiley mammal.
Well, my question is too: is that it can't just be just a linear timeline like that, right? Because the reptiles and us, there's so many different variations, right? It can't just be that simple.
I will draw a mouse for a mammal.
I'm just curious, like what that offshoot, how that happened.
I will keep the question kind of open because, I mean, it's some sort of a mammal. All right. And it has mammal glands right here. All right. Mammary glands. So how we are in humans, right? Let me draw a human. We are similar to our bacteria. So there is a continuous line which is unmistakable. You know, it's if you look at the genomes, I miss a human. If you look at genomes of this species, they're all sequenced. All the key gene sequence, the DNA sequence. So you just find that there is a continuous. Let me switch it back to show me. There is a continuous line of one goes into another, right? And you can see the evolution. You can see the relation. The scientists used to draw these trees. What I want to do is to draw a tree, and it's pretty easy to do. It's pretty. I guess I can do that, right? Oh yeah, you can do that. You can pretty easy to do. These are called phylogenetic trees. You take the sequences of the genomes, and if you look at science phylogenetic trees, you can find tons of them.
Thank you.
And these are computer generated. There is no cheating there. You take just genomes of this species, and they give you unmistakable phylogenetic tree like that. And that's that's modern proof of Darwin's theory. Like in the past, it was questioned, but right now you can easily see that if you sequence the DNA, we are all related. Darwin theory confirms really well through phylogenetic trees. And it starts from very simple, and it goes all the way to human lineages. Even human tribes can be built like that, just from sequencing different humans. It's absolutely true. It's I guess we create our reality, but it is our collective reality is all agrees with that truth. All right. Scientific reality agrees with that truth. So I guess the question is, somewhere in this tree there might be air. I will take a different color. Infusion, that's why we call it infusion. Somewhere in the past they infuse here and there. They come and infuse. And also if you look at the dating of these divisions, it's like nothing, 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 nothing. It should be a different color, but it is nothing, 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 nothing. Nothing happens. Very little diversity, very little generation of species. And then there is, I forgot how they call it, explosion of species generation, explosion of diversity. And scientists who study that, and I actually know this once in person because we were friends school friends, they just are amazed how it's not only one split like that. It was multiple splits happen at the same time. It was like God came at that time and said, "Now you guys, now from that we create tons of others." Or another hypothesis would be that aliens came and there was a lab here which generated lots of species and let them live longer, continue, but they would not create the species, they would kind of generate this species from what exists here. And again, next hypothesis would be that it was non-physical beings, how do you call them? Non-corporeal beings. Non-corporeal, like not very corporeal. like fairies. Fairies, when we interviewed a fairy, I guess until now we were speaking mostly about mainstream science, and now we just jump into fairies. But we channel and hey Sarah, we channel and Jim's channeled a fairy, and fairy just said yes, it's their job to participate in creation of new species. When I read Michael Newton is a scientist who interviewed a lot of people having he does hypnotic regressions and publishes the summaries of these regressions, mostly with quotes and explanations. So he does tons of that. So once a soul, in one of his books, a soul, a person sort of hypnotically channeling his soul says that one of its favorite jobs is to create new species. And because that soul is a beginner in creating new species, she mostly specializes on simple fishes, on fish, and she did very good creating new species of fish. So I guess it is partly, in large extent, it is spiritual creation. Fairies and spiritual beings create those. So they manipulate the DNA and help it to rearrange into creation of new species. So what we know, again, we know that all these dogs and cats are, which we have, they are from Earth. Most of their genome is, again, looking at this tree. Let me draw a cat here. So there would be a cat here somewhere. At the end, right? It would be a cat. Can you see? No, we can't. A cat. All right. And you have a dog, which is actually very similar to a cat in many ways. It's like the structure is about the same. It's a mammal, and it's a predatory mammal. Oh, sorry, the ears are different, and the tail is different, but otherwise they are similar in many ways. All right. So these are clearly have origin on Earth, but also we know that there are ancient dogs and cats on other planets, and they're different. They could be humanoid, they could be big lions or something, but they are on other planets. So there was some infusion at some point, and it could be infusion on material level, it could be infusion on spiritual level, which directed the evolution in this way. And I guess, and my best educated guess from what I heard so far, it is both. It is coordinated activity, spiritual and I would say alien. They kind of interact and they drive their development of species. So my question was, does this, I guess that happens on our planet and we know the timing, and it happens on other planets and they know their timing. My question was, does our timing correspond to their timing? Is it the same synchronous development, only dinosaurs, then only mammals and that sort of thing, or was it an insect somewhere in there, and or is it shifted somewhat? And so far the answer I'm getting through channelings is from through Jim mostly, but not only, is that there is a general pattern, but there are lots of exceptions. There is a lot of exceptions. So it's not necessarily, so the different planets develop at their own timings. So it's not synchronized across the galaxy or across the universe. It's shifted. It is shifted. But again, there is a huge infusion of humans, right, which came way after in the galaxy, which came way after insects in the galaxy and reptilians in the galaxy. So there is a major sort of infusion of new idea and a new it's not a species, it's kind of wider class of humans, which happens in a timely fashion. But later on different planets there is different timings. I guess that should answer your question, right?
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the interesting concept too, because if you really see as far as the different species of dogs, that's more or less been our doing. I know that the different breeds, etc., have been just a mass manipulation of DNA, but I just wanted to bring up on that concept. You did answer, kind of a lot of it, but what is it? I remember seeing statues online of humans riding dinosaurs. So I just thought that was an interesting concept as well.
I'm reading now a book called 𝗪𝗘𝗓 book, and they tell pretty much in mainstream language. They use mainstream language and it was published first time 60 years ago. They tell the story, including the evolution, including this question of did humans ride the dinosaurs? And as I understand, it is possible we overlapped, but barely. And those humans who rode dinosaurs weren't Homo sapiens yet. It was way prehistoric humans.
Right? Just what? Basic. Or would you consider them a caveman?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
As basic gets, because that's kind of what the statue would assume. There wasn't any reins on it or anything like that. He just kind of sat on the back of it like a taxi.
I cannot. I don't know the details. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting subject, though, isn't it?
It's an interesting subject. It's an open. I can speculate, but even from channel information, it's not clear. It's a nice question to ask several. How much did we overlap?
Right.
Because suppose Lyrans visited, Lyran refugees came down to Earth and lived here. They might have, have overlapped with dinosaurs time-wise, but there is a nice show, Radio Lab show. I wish, if I remember, I will put a link here about dinosaur extinction. Basically, it's pretty well studied. The dinosaurs went extinct. I don't remember exactly the date, but they went extinct in a few hours, just based on how their remains, how excavations remains of them.
Mm-hmm.
They went extinct in a few hours. So even if humans were there, not many humans would survive.
Fair enough.
Maybe they did, but not many. And obviously after that, until modern human, a lot of different things happened. It was way, the distance is big. I wish I knew the numbers, but I don't. I'm sorry.
Well, and when you talk about the channeling over and over, they keep harping on the concept of time is not linear. So to really be able to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 might not.
Yeah. All right. That's a different topic. Non-linear time.
For sure.
Yeah. It really depends on the perspective and on the language. Mostly beings who speak about non-linear time are way distant from our reality. They look at us from a very different perspective, and what they say comes through a channeler, and it gets translated.
Fair enough.
So from certain perspective, there is no time, right? But from our perspective, everything is time.
There's time.
Yeah. Now we have 9:37.
Right. No, I get what you're getting at.
Yeah. You can look at the same thing from different perspectives, and it will look very different. Like circular here, more like rocket-like shape here. So it's a different perspective changes the answer tremendously. I was also thinking about that before even I started going into it. I went into Extraterrestrials February 2009, 5 years ago, And until then, I was into mystics a lot, into gods and supernatural a lot, but never paid attention to extraterrestrials. I kind of, since my high school to 2009, which was, for 20-something years, I didn't pay attention. But just looking at the life, I discovered by myself, or at least, the idea might be in the air, but it wasn't obvious at all, that past is influenced by present. I formulated it, so past influenced by present. I will draw it. So where's past? Let me see if it works. Yeah, it works. Past, present, future. So we know timeline. We are in the now, so that's now. And I just noticed that sometimes, and okay, we know their cause-consequence relationship, right? There is a cause and there is a consequence. And it's always cause first, consequence second. And there is like a person is a consequence of his parents meeting and falling in love.
Right.
And it's always first the parents meet and fall in love, and then there is a consequence. But if you look how the circumstances brought people together, you just get surprised how well structured that can be. Sometimes very random, very similar random events bring an amazing result. And when you start looking back how these events come together, you see that sometimes very strong result kind of puts a shadow down the past. Like if you look at the especially strong events, for us, strong events are like for Russians, Russian Revolution or German War, Second World War, or other strong events. I guess for Americans it would be like other. I don't want to name them. Mostly they're negative, but some of them are positive. And you can see how things like Napoleon is, for Europeans, Napoleon would be the best example. Napoleon was so incredibly lucky. It cannot be like, if you just calculate it, cannot be. It's kind of, he was guided, driven, at least in our reality. Things coincided in a way that brought his luck. But it looks like his luck goes first and things coinciding to make that happen. Mostly miracle. They kind of fall. The past was built in the future in a very structured way. You could call it God's providence, but I called it. How did I call it? Cause, consequences, relationships reversed in time. So sometimes the cause is later and consequence is before, basically meaning that past is created from the goal in the future. And it's not, later I discovered it's not only me, it was actually a dominant idea in medieval Europe, middle centuries, because people were very serious about God's providence, and they thought that things happen because something later attracts these things. So they were also into that, thinking that later event can attract past events. But you can see how later event kind of spreads their influence in the past. So that is kind of from very human, very 3D perspective. You can just absorb that. Sometimes it is just visible how things fall together to create something in the future. And now Bashar comes and says, you create your past. Past is created from the now. And it's sort of the same idea that now creates the past. And sometimes you see how the past changes. Most substantial changes are like, again, I always look at Russia. In Russia, there are history books. And when a new dictator comes, new like Stalin or Stalin-like dictator comes,
The
They
histories
rewrite
the different
historical
way.
books, and the whole history changes so radically that the whole country, all millions of people, just change their mind and believe the new reality, and they believe the new reality so strongly. Hey, I froze there. Believe so strongly that this past changes. You can just, just because people focus of attention changes by the law of attraction and repulsion, what they believe now becomes so real that, it becomes absolutely real in a way that it becomes a consensus of this country, and it's really, it manifests, the past manifests from the now. So that is my understanding why what they say is real. So the future obviously is created from the now, and the past is affected by the now. But again, what they say, Bashar and others, is that by changing the now, by changing your thinking about the now, you can change the past, which is true. But and they also say that everything is an illusion, and especially now is less illusion than the future and the past, and even the time flow is an illusion. And obviously they are right. No, okay, not obviously, but I agree with them. I agree with them. I have that sensation. I guess the whole life I have sensation that sometimes you feel like you're in some sort of a game. Not necessarily a computer game. In the past, I was thinking about it as a theatrical. I'm in the theater or in a movie. I'm in the movie, and my thinking was that maybe everybody are actors. They know the truth, but they pretend to be real people. But in fact, they're someone else. They know some answer which they don't let me know. That was my, when I was a child, that was my idea. Why do they behave so strangely? They probably know the truth, but they pretend to play this strange game of life. And now I know another analogy is that it is a computer game. But okay, so it's all an illusion, and the time is an illusion, but it is very good illusion. It's very reliable, especially when you kind of get into it. When you get trained, you're so set into this illusion that it's really hard to escape it. Again, we are coming to the idea of the Matrix. It's you remember in the movie Matrix, Neo, he plays it really well. How he kind of meditates, even in the hardest situation. What he has to do, he has to assemble himself in a very Asian way, Asian arts, martial arts way. You have to get a grasp of reality in a way to transform it. So it's kind of a transformation of reality, which comes from inner peace and inner understanding of the balance. They play it really well in Asian way, Asian martial arts, but also there is Indian, American Indian way, which is very similar. What's his name? Don
Juan?
Yeah, something like that. Don Juan.
The teachings of Don Juan?
Yes.
Carlos Castaneda,
yes. The same idea. Castaneda, that you have to regain the balance, and then you can transform the reality.
In that specific one, they were talking about one of Don Juan's teachers scaling a wall across the waterfall, which he essentially wasn't grabbing anything, but he was using from his core, his center core, etherical tentacles that he essentially was dictating from a different time space to look like he was floating across these rocks. And he was asking Carlos if he was really seeing what was going on. And all he saw was some dude floating. But the whole point of the story is that it's that deep type of absolute nowness, so to speak, and that intention that things can literally be transformed to where you can, well, traverse gravity.
Yes. So it is possible, but not frequently. We live in that consensus reality, which is
a special human.
which is formed by our collective, and our collective agreement is that the time is very real, and try to be late for a train or for airplane. You know, if you're late, it's you can meditate, but if the plane goes away, it goes away. It's really hard to change the reality in this way. So, being late for appointment or getting stuck in traffic, it's you can manipulate time one way or another, but it is art. It's art. So what I'm saying is, at least from my perspective, it is more helpful to be where you are. You have to have that higher perspective that it is an illusion. It helps in some way, but only that help is reasonably limited. Reasonably limited. Now, when we come to the idea of evolution, yeah, I guess the same thing. There is that past, which is consensus now. It's galactic consensus. When we ask our alien friends about their past, about their history, the timelines could be different. There are multiple timelines. There is certain flexibility. There is certain time travel, but there is also general idea, general consensus of the history. And some of the species are closer to us. They have common history with us, and that's kind of becomes more solid. And some of those are so distant from us that yes, their timeline is so different that we are basically talking about different things. And like speaking with Bashar, they basically are from so different reality that we overlap only through very few connections. Whether time transfers, time travels through evolution, it's possible. It is possible. When biologists look at generation of species, sometimes they come surprised. There are a lot of missing links. On this tree, phylogenetic tree, which I showed, there are missing links. There is some new feature which comes from nowhere. And these are well documented. Just Google for missing links in evolution. You will find tons of them. Just something gets invented, and that could be infusion, again, through God's will, through angelic, in-between realities, helpers who basically construct this world, like I call them system administrators, programmers. There are fairy programmers who program that, and aliens, right? So they infuse us with something which they grab from elsewhere. Because all that knowledge is sort of available. They can look in the future, they can look in the past, they can create that into their genetic evolution tree. I guess they're limited by a lot of limitations. They're limited by a lot of limitations. It has to be benevolent and it has to be positive. They cannot just manipulate it at random. But still, there is a lot of creativity there. I often tell a story that I'm interested in DNA and light and DNA and healing and things of that sort, and how the DNA can be manipulated with light, how it is playing its music and energy vibration, how the chakras are connected to DNA sequence. That sort of thing. I think there is some sort of a code there, and I'm looking for discovery of this light code. And I was speaking to a Syrian through a different channel, or through a Syrian lady, and she said, "You will be working on that." But basically, she said, "I will be working on it in a future life." For me, it was a disappointment. But she said, "I will be an architect as I understand, of future species. So I will be helping to design new species, biological. And to design them, and I understand now, to design them, I have to experience this life in full. So I understand, you program something into the species, but then it will have consequences. Like humans we have programmed into us short lifespan, much shorter than aliens. We have programmed into us cancer, all sorts of genetic disorders, There's all sorts of mental disorders, all sorts of mental instabilities. It's all kind of, partly it is evolved, but partly it is by intention of those who designed us. Partly. So, you know, is it a responsible experiment that they did? Are we happy with what they achieved? I know. It's like we like this life. It's very interesting, but I wish it was sort of happier, right? Happier, way happier.
Mm-hmm.
Way happier. All right. Let's move back to the idea of infusions. So there are two types of infusions. One type is past. In this phylogenetic tree, they infused us with their DNA many times. And the reasons were multiple. One reason, refugees from different planets. Like Lyrans, Pleiadians, they just need some place to live. They move here, create a colony, and because they are different from Earth, they're different. They don't fully can breathe our air. They cannot fully eat our food. They have to adapt themselves. And the best way to adapt to a local planet is to cross themselves with...
To hybridize.
Yeah, with whatever lives here. Initially it would be like primates, but then it would be humans, and that is, I asked if, you know, how often it is in vitro, meaning no lab, just in tube, make it in the lab, hybridization, and how often it is through marriages. And I understand now that in most cases it was in the lab hybridization, but in some cases it is through love and marriages. There are some aliens who just fall in love with humans and modify themselves to the level that they can live here, like Lyrans and Pleiadians. They just marry into humans and just live here and get their offspring and create a bloodline of heavy infusion of alien DNA. I know in person one gentleman who his father is a Pleiadian, and it's obvious from him that he is not from this place. He's so much of a hybrid that, you know, it can't be mistaken. So the story is that, you know, his father just chose to live on Earth, modified himself enough to look like a human, and that's about it. And that happened in this century, past century, centuries before. So we have these infusions and bloodlines of Pleiadian, Lyran, and many other species DNA. Yahyel. And so one is in vitro, one is through love and marriages. Then it could be through, again, in the past, it could be just through infusions. I don't know, they take, again, it is in the lab. They take the DNA and sperm, and they take the egg, fertilize, implant into female. Sometimes the technology is so advanced they can manipulate the DNA within the fetus. So it doesn't have to be before the conception. It can be during the pregnancy. They can manipulate the DNA after the birth. Not all of the DNA, but some of the DNA. So it is kind of a diffused line, but the technologies are so good they can do anything. But we have historic infusions. Some of us are hybrid through generations. We know that our grandparents were hybrids. You can see that in their photographs, in their behavior, how enlightened they were. And it can be now, right? So now that infusion hybridization program, again, it happens already. It already happens, continues. There was a slight interruption in it when they switched from involuntary to voluntary hybridization. So now through our site, people can apply electronically, and the aliens would consider them for hybridization to others or in getting the infusion of alien DNA. So now we finally get to the point of infusion of alien DNA. So where do they infuse? I asked and I get some understanding. So let me try to give you an answer, a short answer. So what they do, they use holographic projection. They holographically synthesize the cells, full cells in our brain. Mostly they're interested in brains, so they mostly infuse our brains with new alien DNA. Hey, Brian. They do that now. They do it on voluntary basis after people apply. So you ask for certain Lyran, Pleiadian, Arcturian DNA. So they give you that, and this would be new cells that they put in your body. So we have Brian. Hello.
Hello.
All right. Nice to see your face. I don't think I have seen it before. Hello.
No.
Thank
really.
you for joining.
Yeah, it's just interesting your topic there.
Have you been following me? Did you hear what I said before?
Yes, about 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me finish that thought and then I will invite questions. All right, so they create the cells, new cells in the brain. So the cells have to squeeze between our cells. And they say it takes time. They kind of first create sort of images of the cells, blueprints, and then the cell is sort of materializes there. So it's like transdimensional, slow transdimensional materialization of cells from outside of our dimension into our physical dimension. And in these cells, I guess they pre-program what they want to put there. And now it's my guess they would put some of the human DNA and they would put some of the alien DNA there. And it wouldn't be at random. They would put certain traits which I think they would think are beneficial for you. So that's my guess how they do that. Now, what the cells would do, here are many options which I didn't have a chance to ask. One option is just to live there and kind of integrate into the system without exchanging the genetic information. Another option would be to actually spread this genetic information to other cells. There is a mechanism known to science how different cells can exchange genetic information. And this is through so-called transposons and through viruses. The difference between transposons and viruses is very tiny. Basically, virus is something which is, we know, goes from outside to inside, but it kind of multiplies in the cell, then jumps out and goes into another cell. And some of the viruses can actually integrate into the genome, into the chromosome, sit there in dormant form, sleeping form, silent form, until they are getting activated by something, and then they kind of synthesize more viruses and they go outside. So this can be kind of very explosive, like sickness viruses, but this can be also very friendly, where viruses behave responsibly and don't really explode. They kind of do it in a slow, friendly fashion. So transposons are very similar with the only difference they rarely go outside of the cells. At least the scientists didn't study how they go outside of the cells. They kind of just jump between the chromosomes. It's like kind of almost like viruses, except they don't leave the cell. They multiply outside of the chromosome, then insert somewhere, and they jump, and there is a lot of crosstalk. To estimate the rate at which that happens, there is a lot of estimates. But just to have an idea, if you just look in the past, how frequently we had chromosomal jumps between different chromosomes, on average it's per generation between you and your parent, there was one jump of a transposon from one chromosome to another. It's not that frequent, but sometimes it gets way more frequent. but it's on average like would be one jump. But historically, through many generations, there is a lot of that jump, and then sometimes it is there are explosions of different rearrangements in chromosomes. And of course, in most cases, if it is random, it would be just killing the offspring, so it wouldn't get inherited. But sometimes it is either intentionally or unintentionally it becomes beneficial for offspring, so it gets inherited. I can take a breath and take questions if you like to participate. All right. I guess I'm talking about sophisticated stuff. Infusions of alien DNA could be done through creation of cells in the brain and in the body, which carry alien DNA, and then these cells have a potential to transfer this new DNA sequences into other cells. Do you have any comments, questions, discussion?
I got all of it. I'm downloading for just fine. I thought he had a question, but I guess not.
All right. Now, how can you squeeze more DNA into the cell? Tucker recently, I think it was Tucker who said that the alien DNA is not replacing the human DNA. It's kind of an addition.
100% human, and then. You know,
yes, so 100% human, and there is an addition of alien DNA. So I don't know the answer from them, but how it is possible? There are multiple ways. First, you can just lengthen the chromosomes. They are already pretty long, so adding more doesn't hurt much. The length of human DNA is huge. The cell is tiny, but in one cell, the length, if you just stretch the DNA molecule just in one, whatever, double-stranded DNA, make it one double-stranded strand, it will be 2 meters long, so it's longer than our height. It's packed really well, and surprisingly, it's very redundant. Very redundant, meaning there is a lot of so-called junk DNA, which is not junk, but which is not overly active. It is there, but it is, I would say, it is variable. It is variable meaning fluid. It's evolutionary, changing fast, and scientists don't understand what it does. There is fixed DNA, and there is wobbly DNA, which changes with life and with generations. So when the scientists discuss DNA, they mostly talk about DNA which doesn't change much. It's called coding DNA. It is about 2-3% of DNA is something that scientists don't understand what it is. It's called genes. We really know all these genes very well. We know what they do. We know their names. We know their structure more or less. Most of the genes we know produce proteins, so we know the whole molecular biology of that part. Not very well known, but we know enough details about this. I guess I will start drawing. That would help a little bit. Then there is a lot of non-coding DNA, which scientists don't understand well, and that is where there is an opportunity to put a lot of stuff there. So that would be 100% all DNA, all 2 meters of our DNA, which is about the size, which is 3 billion, 3 by 10 to the 9th, monomers called nucleotides. So one piece of DNA, one letter of DNA is called nucleotide. Can you see it? Yes. Nucleotide. Nucleotide contain a base. So scientists usually say we have 3 to the 10 to the 9, 3 billion bases, or 3 billion nucleotides. It's almost the same monomer, nucleotides. And 10 to the 9th is also called giga. So the length of our genome is 3 gigabases, plus minus 2%. And it's well sequenced. So where can you fit alien DNA here? So about 3% we know pretty well. These are our genes. They kind of spread over the genome, but it's just for the lengthwise, it's 3% is genes. About double that amount, which it is something that looks like genes in the genome, very similar sequences, but scientists don't know what this does. So this is not protein coding genes, but coding something. It behaves very similarly. Some mysterious gene. I would call them mysterious gene. Mysterious genes, which is, at least we can see them, but we don't understand what these sequences do. There is about up to 50% of unique DNA, unique, non-repetitive. Unique DNA, we know the sequence, and we are pretty sure that doesn't do anything we understand. It is there, it is sort of not as well conserved. Genes are really well conserved. Mysterious genes, really well conserved. They don't change from mice to humans much. The same sequence, very conserved through the humans and in the past into the previous species. This unique, relatively variable sequence, relatively variable. It varies more, but we don't see the structures there, so the scientists don't understand what it is. There is tons of sequence which, if you change it, nothing very bad happens usually. And there is about another half which is called junk DNA, which is not junk, but it's just called this way, and it's largely repetitive. It's repetitive. About 10% is made by one sequence. One sequence repeated a million times. It's called, my favorite sequence called ALU. About 300 bases, repeated a million times. 10 to the 6 is a million. Randomly, across the genome, almost randomly, but it's kind of spread all across the genome. And there is tons of other repetitive sequences there, repetitive sequences. And scientists just have very little clue what they do. So in this, about 3%, about 90%, 91%. In this 91%, the alien can place a lot of sequence without anyone noticing and without affecting the main biological functions. Especially in this repetitive part, there is tons of opportunity to place anything. And it is not very well structured in length. So if you just take, say, a mouse and replace, you do that. You take the mouse sequence and take a piece and just move it elsewhere. Usually it doesn't change the phenotype, doesn't change their how do you call them, the health of offspring at all. You can't really see any difference. So the sequence, how that's all, the order of the genes is not that much fixed in the genome. So if there are chromosomal rearrangements, in many cases it doesn't affect much their health of their offspring. Any questions so far? So that is wonderful. There is a lot of opportunities. So genome is the sequence of the genome is very, how do you call, the chromosomes are very allowing for rearrangements, allowing for insertions, and even the human scientists, because the human scientists don't know the sequence of Lyran and Pleiadian DNA. If anybody inserted their Lyran or Pleiadian DNA, they wouldn't even notice. There is no way for them to notice that. Because the genome is sort of, from human perspective, is such a mess. If you look at their code of Windows, and you can't even see what is inserted there or what is changed there because you can't really read it well. So this is very similarly, the human genome is. We kind of know the sequence, we know the letters, but the scientists cannot really read that well. The scientists can recognize these genes. You know, they can recognize them pretty well. But beyond that, 91% is mostly barely understood. So there is a lot of uncharted territory in the genome which can be manipulated a lot. Brian, do you have any comments and questions? I'm open now.
Well, so what you're saying here is with all this this genetic makeup that you've drew a schemata as to how the genetics, the junk stuff there that you're referring to, and there's no way of identifying any type of mysterious, I guess you can say, added DNA with regards to the alien, where they say when they inject some type of their DNA into your system, there's no way that the scientists science of today can actually recognize this kind of stuff. So then where exactly are we headed here with this kind of stuff, man? Like, are we going into the unknown mystery of a new evolution, or what's your hypothesis on this?
Thank you. I guess two questions. First is it true that scientists cannot, I will switch the camera back. Is it true that scientists cannot identify? I guess mainstream scientists, for them it's just unthinkable to think about alien infusion. So they cannot do it just because they can think about it. They don't want to risk their career. So there is very practical reasons for them not to do that. I'm blanking on his name. There was a nice scientist. I guess it's a shame that I forget his name. He just recently died. It was pretty tragic because he was close to sequencing the alien DNA. He was collecting the money. It was a very promising project, but he died from cancer. And again, I'm thinking about conspiracy. Maybe some bad guys just wanted him to die from cancer. So I will Google. It's like called Starchild. Starchild, and I will remember his name. I was in communication with him, but I somehow not prepared. Starchild. Yes, I found him. Starchild Project. Unfortunately, he didn't finish it. He sequenced alien DNA. Oh gosh, it wants me to like on Facebook. And his name is not on the surface of the site. All right, so I found the project, Starchild Project. So there was a skull, alien skull found, and it ended up in the hands of a true researcher who really understood that it was an alien skull, and he really wanted to sequence it. I'm just a second. I'm reading his. They don't name. His name is removed, I guess. It's a shame not to know his name. All right. While I'm talking, can you Google Starchild and find the researcher name? It should be very easy. Can you? Starchild researcher. Images. 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗓. Yes, 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗓. Here we go. I can share the screen with you now. Share screen, share. Here we go. So that's my friend, 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗓. I don't know. I'm sorry if I kind of blanked on his name, but he found the. He was given. I mean, he was given by someone. He was given the skull, and he was a good researcher. So when he sees that it's not a human skull, he there was a lot of differences. It was clearly non-human. He recognized it's non-human. It's not doesn't even connect to our human lineage. It was so alien that it couldn't even fit in our genetic, phylogenetic tree. So logically, the next step would be to sequence it, and from the bone you can get the DNA. And he got the first sequences. I guess he found it himself. He found friends who were, and sequencing is cheap. It just takes many labs do a lot of sequencing. So at some point he got a little bit of money to sequence few genes, and he found that this skull is as distant from humans as frogs are. It's so it's not related to frogs, but it is so unearthly that it is not even as distant as frogs. But it had DNA, so there were sequences. The sequences, I don't know if I can find the sequence. I'll try to. Star Child sequences. Give me the sequences and sequences. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, on this graph, it looks like it is still between some sort of Neanderthal and chimps. But I don't know what graph it is. I remember when I read it, it was farther than chimps from us, farther than chimps. So I guess that's the sequence graph. So it just shows comparison of different. I didn't get to it. It just shows the comparison of different sequences. So that's how the scientists look at the different sequences and image. And so can you see it? So you look at different things and see how similar they are, and highlighted are the letters which are different. So that's a typical scientific approach to finding something. Now, if you want to see the alien DNA, you have to, logically, you would have to either get an sample of alien DNA, which is possible, not impossible. I have another friend in ufology who seems to have a sample of gray blood, and he also wants to sequence. But again, to find the money for that, it's not that simple. I'm pretty sure in our secret projects in Area 51 they have all tons of sequences and all tons of samples, but it's not something which is in public domain. Even in museums like how do you call it? Main museums of archaeology, they have hidden artifacts of. There are books of secret archaeology, hidden artifacts of their alien bones and alien stuff. But again, it's not in the public view. So the only public project, as I know, is by 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗧𝗏, who unfortunately died prematurely. He was very energetic, but I suspect it was a conspiracy just to kill him with cancer. And anyway, so another way would be to take hybrids, and hybrids who know that they are from a certain lineage, and compare these hybrids to non-hybrids, which would be like the majority of people, just to average majority DNA, and see what sequences are different. I'm not in big favor of this project, because if humans will be able to genotype hybrids, and if humans become afraid of aliens, they might become afraid of hybrids, and then we are in trouble. So that is not my favorite project. I wouldn't promote it. It's very fun to prove that there is a hybridization program, but I think I already believe in it. I already speak to aliens. Why do I need to develop the ways to tell apart the hybrids from non-hybrids? It could lead to some sort of genocide of hybrids, which I don't like. It's like the idea is on the surface. I mean, it's in the sci-fi literature, so people are, there is tons of movies about hybrids, so it's already on the surface. And there are different scenarios, and some of them are very unhappy. That was first question. What was the second question? How that will affect the humanity in the future, right? That's what you asked, Brian? I guess you're disconnected.
Yeah, that's sort of more or less.
Where does it lead?
Yeah.
Oh, that's again, that's a nice question to the aliens. They know what they do, and they say that unless we ascend, we are doomed. I guess that's the main answer. Unless we ascend, we are doomed. And ascension is telepathy. We have to develop telepathy and unite to be able to ascend. Telepathy is a quality which we are capable of, but it can be boosted through genetic manipulations. So average humans are capable of telepathy if they grow up in telepathic culture. So if you take a human embryo and, I guess embryo, and just teleport into their world and impregnate an alien hybrid, and the embryo is born in a four-dimensional world, we know that these children are fully telepathic and fully four-dimensional. So genetically, you don't need to manipulate humans to make them four-dimensional. We know we were communicating with a planet, Utopia 5, through a channeler. Utopia 5 in Andromeda system. This planet, it has Pleiadians from Pleiades. So Andromeda is a different galaxy, but Pleiadians were transferred there, and they have a planet there, a civilization there. And in the times of Romans, they took Roman Empire. They took human slaves from Roman Empire and took them as slaves. Later, the slaves were liberated and became citizens of this planet. And this is clearly a four-dimensional planet, and we have humans, genetically humans, who live there, look like humans, dimensional and telepathic. So, and there is more examples of that. So, genetically, we are just fine for telepathy, and we're just fine for four-dimensional life. It is our collective slow development, our collective slow development that we don't. As a civilization, we don't get there because we teach our children to live third-dimensional life, and we don't know how to teach them to live telepathic four-dimensional life. There is no place on Earth which can which does foster high-dimensional life. I guess maybe some places are there. We just I would assume Tibetan or Indian or some other nice places where there are cultures. But individuals there, after lots of training and meditation, can do higher dimensional things. But it's not mainstream. Clearly, like there is mainstream which is dragging us down. So. So one of the reasons for the aliens to infuse the genes into us would be to help us develop telepathy and help us to live a more four-dimensional life. And the second reason, which they clearly state, they are not afraid to state it, and it was answered many times, that they hope to incarnate in us, and their souls better incarnate in better genetically designed beings, so they infuse their DNA to help us to become more better vessels for the souls of higher dimensional souls. So that would be the second. It's about the same, but just a little different perspective.
Max, are we sort of like a little, this planet is sort of like a little test? Was I thinking about these different, our existence as humanity as well, and I've been following your program since almost back when it's just when it started up, I guess you can say. And I also, you sort of surf the web and you go and check out different analogies, different perspectives on our existence, and a lot of it is kind of fluffy, but yet you kind of wonder sometimes, man, like where are these people's, where's the ideology coming from, and where is the influence for this type of mindset that we've been, I guess you could say, working through as humans as well, trying to figure out, well, okay, we're here, we're doing this, where do we come from, how do we continue to, I guess you can say, to, I guess, ascend, I guess you can say, to a higher state of being, or higher state of I guess you can, how am I looking for a word, a higher state of thinking, I guess you can say, so we can become a better human being, I guess you could say. So I'm just kind of wondering if, like the Kerr and all the different aliens that have been channeling through Jim and various people, other people as well, and we seem to be like a little bit of a kind of like a little bit of a test planet or something. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, we are a test planet. We are a test planet, no question. It's a big experiment, which wasn't planned like that, but when it came this way, they said, oh, well, that's interesting. It becomes even more interesting than the initial experiment. Let's support it. Let's keep it going. I guess Buddhism gives a huge clue what is happening. Somehow, most of us have been incarnated on other planets and lived much higher dimensional lives. So, as souls, we already experienced 4th dimension well, many of us. So in past lives, we have been 4th dimension. And then we just came here to this density, which is one of the densest densities in, I guess, in the galaxy. And we get trapped here because there is some attraction to what we do here. It's so interesting. So we live here that life, then we go in the 7th dimension, in that place of discarnate spirits to learn our lessons. And we have free choice here and we have free choice there, and we just choose to come back. Oh, we say, yeah, 4th dimensional is cool, but 3rd dimensional, oh, that is something. How about I jump back and learn something else here? So it is our collective choice. On average, we just choose to come back in this nonsense and keep suffering and keep experiencing all this full spectrum, wide spectrum of life, of emotions and experiences. We keep experiencing a wide spectrum of experiences, dark and light and all of that, and we get trapped there. So Buddha said, finish that nonsense, go back to the light. You don't need to reincarnate in this darkness anymore. But we don't listen. We don't listen. We keep doing that.
Sort of like a school of hard knocks, eh?
Again?
Sort of like the school of hard knocks.
I don't know what it is. Hard what?
School of hard knocks.
It's an American expression.
All right. Yeah, boot camp. Yeah, like.
But of life. But of life.
Try to what's the word? Your head off the wall. What do you do? The head bang. Try to bang your head on the wall, head of the wall, and you feel like sparkles go from your eyes, and you say, "Yeah, it's painful, but let me bang again." Right? That sort of thing. So where does it go? No, your question was, is it an experiment? Yes, it is an experiment. Bashar says we don't need television, we don't watch television, we don't watch movies, we just watch you, he says to us. And we are being watched by the whole galaxy with surprise. They're very surprised what we do. And until recently they didn't even understand us, but now they meet our colonists up there, meet our friends, us there, and now they understand much better why we do what we do. But still, there is a lot of surprise and sadness, and they don't really approve what we do here, collectively and even individually. You know, we seem to be enlightened, but still, you know, if they were in our shoes, they would do it very differently. Like Yahyel are very surprised by our desire for luxury. They're so stoic, that is a word, you know, ascetic, they're so ascetic. You know, they would, you know, they wouldn't do anything, you know, which we do, like, you know, beautiful houses, beautiful dress, beautiful furniture. They, you know, they would live in blank walls and wear very simple clothes and ignore the pleasures of life. That's Yahyel. And that's what they do when they incarnate here. Pleiadians don't approve of our practicality. They, you know, they laugh at our practicality. You know, they say we are much bigger than that. Don't be practical.
But the thing is,
and so on.
The thing is, Max, why is there such a diverse from people enjoying the luxury to people having the basic needs on their table? Is there a form of luxury as well? Such a broad spectrum of a form of, I guess you can say, what we call enjoying the life itself. There's from wars to, I mean, there's a whole gamut of total experiences that that I kind of wonder myself is like what, like why is this such a diverse experience? You can come into a famine, or you can come into where the spoils are beneficial, you know, or you can say bountiful. So like I can't figure this out. Like, you know, why such a spectrum of experiences? Do we need it for each individual's growth as we come in and inhabit that body?
I don't know. I don't know why. There is that strange human collective entity, human collective, which is basically a summary of our souls. It's more like spiritual collective thing, collective entity which decides what they want to do with Earth. And their free will is very respected. So, you know, they are maybe the first ones who decide what they want from Earth collectively. And they have, you know, they collaborate with some sort of creator type of entity, creator type of personality, intelligence, which has the right to change a lot in this reality. They can do miracles on a global scale. They probably wouldn't do miracles on individual scale, but they could do miracles on global scale. They can, I think, they can change some of the parameters of the matrix, like astrological parameters of the matrix. You know, people who pay attention to astrology, some days are good, some days are bad, some days are lucky, some days you better stay low, and so on. So they can send angelic helpers and things like that. So the whole experiment can be affected by many ways which are not quite visible to us. I have a very strong feeling that it is manipulated by much higher consciousnesses, like creator type of beings and consciousnesses. they have ways to influence us. Like when the war comes, it's part of that is because of local events. But if you look at different events around the globe at the same time, like there is a nice book called 1968. Google it. It's cheap, and there is an audio version. It's an amazing book, very nice to read. It's like the top highest point of hippies, and highest point of Vietnam War, highest point of freedom movements, obviously absolutely independent from each other, different countries from Russia, Czechoslovakia to Cuba to Mexico, had very strange events which came from nowhere. People just went to the streets, basically. That was the main event. People went to the streets for no reason. I believe it was some divine influence. I mean, at least it was some unmeasured influence which wasn't physical. It was non-physical influence. So we have a lot of those. What was the question? I'm kind of get excited about that thing and I lose it. Experiment. Is it controlled experiment, or this experiment went astray? I guess that's the main question, right? I believe it is still controlled, and there are different timelines, and some of them are very unhappy, some of them are happy. We are in the middle somewhere. And we play our part, they play their part. It is a lot of consciousnesses trying to get it the most interesting way. So one of the ways is just to get best experiences from that, right? I guess it is one of the main results. But also they want to get us through, and on the other side there could be something even better than experiences. Like there is a whole series of books called Explorer Race by Robert Shapiro, where the main point of the whole series of books, lots of different channeled beings say that we are an explorer race, and the main component, main factor which makes us different from all other aliens is that we are explorers. We have this urge to go and explore, to expand and explore, like Star Trek explorers, like all of us. Like we have that ideal of doing exploration. So when we graduate from 3D into 4D, we will add to the galaxy the whole civilization of explorers, which will transform the whole galaxy, basically. That's one of their most hopeful messages we get from many beings. We will make it, and will create a civilization of explorers. It cannot be individual. It is civilization-wide phenomenon. We will make it into something which will transform the galaxy into something very interesting. And on this nice note, I will start wrapping up. I remember, on my list there was another DNA thing which I wanted to say. In addition to things we inserted in chromosomes, so there is one dimension within chromosome we can insert things. Another thing, you can insert cells. So we have our brain with cells, human cells, but we have inserted alien cells which add some functionality. I didn't go about all dimension of fields, energy fields. I guess I will leave it till next time, but keep in mind that DNA could be or is an antenna for transdimensional communications, and large part of our consciousness is outside of our physical mind, and we communicate to it transdimensionally. So that's a big topic for discussion, which I announced, but I didn't get to it today. So a part of the reason why we need to insert alien DNA, and part of the reason, the whole topic of DNA activation is that DNA works as a laser, another big topic, a laser cavity which generates certain physical vibration which connects us to other dimension. And that helps transdimensional things like channeling, telepathy. Telepathy is transdimensional, it's not physical. And ascension, which is a dimensional elevation. So that is one component I wanted to mention. I will continue some other time. And another component I wanted to mention is outside of chromosomes, there are so-called extrachromosomal, extrachromosomal DNA pieces. So they can add these DNA pieces outside of chromosomes. So our chromosome stays intact, and they kind of create a new little artificial chromosome, and they can put there whatever they want. So we would get an extra one of few mini chromosomes where they can add stuff, which is human scientists do that. It's pretty easy. So aliens can do that way better than we do, and that would give us new qualities. And telepathy is one of them, and dimensional manipulation would be another one of them. I thank you very much, my dear listeners and participants. You're so valuable to me. It's nice to have someone on the other side who listens. It would be very, very sad just to speak into their empty room, which I could do, but it's different. Having you on that side is joyful. And thank you, 5 viewers. I know you're there, so thank you. And I know there is a time delay. You will see me in about 2 minutes. By that time, I will already finish. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, my future listeners. It is intentionally sort of, I didn't practice. I wanted to present it in a way which is sort of free-flowing thought. And I guess in the future I will try to jump it into something very concise and very sort of logically built. So it could be created into a 10-minute lecture on how things are. But again, many of these things are guesses. We don't know much stuff, but we do know much stuff, and we do know much stuff more than many other people. We do know more than scientists, because scientists just are blinded by many things, and we know more than non-scientists because non-scientists don't think much about DNA. They know that DNA can be 12-stranded. Oh, that's another big topic. I believe 12-stranded, it's not in our dimension. In our dimension, it is 2-stranded. Everything else is other dimensional. And with that, I bless you. I want to give you some blessing. DNA is a stair. It's a spiral. It's a dance of two things which never touch each other. They always go around each other as lovers. One leading, one strand is leading, one is behind, following, one leading, one following, and they go in a spiral. And a spiral is yin and yang. And if you turn them upside down, they also go, so the leading becomes following, the following becomes leading. So it is yin and yang in many ways, which can switch back and forth. It is something very godly, very miraculous. Simple atoms, we understand the structure, but it works. All the living things in our planet have DNA, and now we know most of the living things in other planets have the same DNA as we do. They can come here and cross with us. It is God everywhere. DNA is very godly. It's very miraculous. It is a crystal, which is maybe one of the main things which connects us to our other spiritual part. It is very material. You can put it in a tube. You can actually see it. You can actually see it. It is very material, and it is very immaterial. When it is live, it is very alive and very spiritual. Spirit, I believe spirit connects to our body through DNA in much of the connection of the spirit to our body through DNA. I believe chakras are, in large extent, are connected to our DNA. I bless your DNA. I bless your spiral nature. I bless your snaky nature. I wish your DNA to sparkle with life. I wish your DNA to be evolving into something beautiful and connect you to something wonderful and godly. I bless you, be blessed, and illuminated your path. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. See you later.
Bye.